This episode of Authentic Lives is in English. Enjoy!
When we start to listen to our heart, we are connecting to the intelligence of the universe. And it's by going through that process and fine-tuning, refining and deepening that process that we understand that better. The system that we are in wants us to be mechanistic. Yeah, it is a mechanistic system. We are creating robots, we are creating AI, but in a way we are already functioning as robots. The problem is not that AI or robots are going to take our work. The problem is that we are starting to functioning like robots and that we are not realizing that. Because we are so much more than just doing repetitive work.
Hello! Today I have a hot chocolate with Rudy de Waele. Rudy assists leaders in getting ready for the next waves through his talks, circles, workshops, and training programs. Rudy focuses on how to thrive in regenerative economy and how to design a conscious business and a meaningful life. He coaches practical guidance and inspires an awareness of past and future generations. Welcome, Rudy, and thank you for joining me for this talk. I first would like to invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you get to this point, and unfold the stories you're going to share with us today.
Good morning, Style. It's a pleasure to be here and thanks for the invitation. Where do I start? Currently I am based in Belgium. I was living in Ibiza before. And I had a major heart surgery this summer. So I have been going through a whole recovery process, which has been an immense healing journey as well and transformational journey as well. I've been mainly working in technology the last, 30 years of my life. And the last 15 years been working mainly as a speaker, like a keynote speaker, working as a futurist and talking to companies globally. And I went to Singularity University, I think it was in 2011. And there for the first time I understood that technology is not going to save us. So there was something lacking. So I had this very weird feeling inside and I couldn't really place what is that feeling, I couldn't really, because I was not used to also, focus on my body or on my feelings. All my life I have been basically working towards the future, always new projects, always working in innovation and not really realizing that I was actually running away from myself. So that only came later. So then after Singularity University, which was in 2011, I think, I lived in the UK for a while. And after a couple of years, it came to me there that everything I know, everything I have experienced will not serve me any longer to innovate on the outside like I have been doing all my life. There was like a wake-up call, like an insight that I need to innovate myself. I need to, learn to understand myself in order to move forward in the future. So, and by that time, I was already 55. Most of my life have passed, and I went into a sabbatical. I went back to Spain, in the north of Spain, in a village where a philosopher friend of mine was also teaching a method called Socratic design. And Socratic design is a method where you actually look into your own belief systems, your own memories, your trauma, your addictions, your assumptions, and it's a deep inner work. And that was actually the first time that I was looking back into my youth and into my life, actually. So that was a very interesting step in my transformation, because I lived in a small village, medieval village of 500 people, and sat by the river every morning. And there, it came to me that I have been basically living next to myself all my life. You know, I had an amazing life. I was always thinking that I was, you know, doing good and, you know, creating a good life for my family, providing for my family, and not realizing that I was just not happy inside and that I was not, you know, paying attention to my own inner happiness. So through Socratic design, and also I met my current wife, Djuena Adelaide. A friend of ours introduced us on Facebook, and she was also going through a difficult period or transformational period in her life. And she also came to do these workshops of Socratic design, and that's how we met. And so since then, basically, we have been working together, and what originally was a focus on how we can create and influence a conscious business. And then later on that turned into regeneration. So I moved to Turkey. I lived in Turkey for 3 years, which was an amazing time.
Can I just make a brief point, Rudy? Because you're telling us a huge story. So I'll try to concise a little bit here where we are so far. So something I would like to point it out that you are world citizen. You traveled and lived in many parts of the globe so far in your life, and like mainly before your wake-up call, I will call it like this, that you say it was when you were 55. That's really beautiful, that you're focusing on all the outside, on only the external factors mainly, and then something called you to think about that was not enough. Something was missing, something was off. And you moved again. So I think this is a process for you. When something needs a change, you make a physical change. You know, you change your environment, and this is huge. How you can do this is really beautiful, and then you change completely. And also something, when you change your mind, you start to attract similar energy. So I think this is also beautiful when you say when you met Djuena and she was in similar process. It's beautiful what our mind show us when we start to see. So I think this is quite good. So I'll let you go on. I don't know if you want to make a comment. We are now in Turkey. You are with Djuena in Turkey.
Yeah, I'll pick up later on that. Yes, of course. It's there is a saying that says if you really want to change, you need to change your environment. Because when we stay in our current environment, we have all our habits, our current habits. We have the people around us, we have the environment, the work environment, social environment, and all that. So, and really to travel also means to move through, you know, constantly new environments. So actually, even without me knowing that I was not really connected to myself, I was actually, you know, living, exploring the life that I wanted. When I was 16, I traveled Europe quite intensively. We had this system which was called Euro Train or something, or Euro Rail, that you could you bought one ticket and you could travel all over Europe for the same price, which was amazing. And then at 18, I visited India. And then the year after, I visited also Morocco and all that. So, and that was a very learning journey also for me to understand that whatever we think in the West or in the country that we grow up, there is another part of the world. There are other cultures, but they are the same people. So that insight came very early for me that, you know, humans, we are all the same. In the end, we have all our struggles, we fall in love, we can recognize the beauty in life or not, but we are all very similar. So, and then there is culture, and there's religion, and there is, you know, separations because of that. So, but then when I came back after these travels, I actually decided to play the saxophone. because that was something that I wanted since I was very young. I loved jazz. So I played saxophone. I started to play with bands. Even we went also on international tours, played up to Japan. And then somehow my first family, we got, I have triplet daughters, with my first wife, Zora. And then somehow I made the switch that I couldn't make a living from playing saxophone. So when I had to provide for my family, which was okay with me, but it was just okay. I put my saxophone aside, which was actually something that I really loved doing. And I think that has been always in me somehow, that I want to come back to the music because it was an expression of self. It was an expression also of like how I can maybe connect to my inner self. Yeah, so it was also a way of speaking to myself and then speaking to others. So I picked that up then later after I came back after my first divorce, actually, when my wife and children moved back to Belgium. We had lived in Barcelona for 10 years. And then also I had this empty void of like, my family was not there any longer. I'm a provider. To who do I provide now? It was such a difficult period for myself. But somehow also I couldn't really get to the bottom of it. I did I remember some sessions with clinical psychology, which helped me at that time, which I had never done. And he advised me to pick back up my saxophone. And then I started playing the saxophone again.
This is good again. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but...
Please do.
So you had something you found. So I will say that you are following your dream. Since you are a kid, you want to play saxophone, you want to be a musician, and you pursue this. But then you have to step aside to provide for your family. And then you lost it, and somehow you give a part of yourself to another thing that was more important, and then it changed again, and then you lost your sense of self. So your story, Rudy, is about getting lost and find yourself again over and over, and it's a pursuit. It's beautiful how you realize this, and most of us are also in this kind of things, but we don't see, like in the majority of time, we cannot see that we're doing this. I think we need to step aside a little bit and try to realize our own patterns, what we want. And if we can change, this is another point that I want to point it out, that because you travel and you could change your environment, I would like you to talk a little bit about it, because it's good if you really can change, and if you see that is you want to do differently and you can change your environment, you can go travel, it's good. But many people can't, and how can they make this change if they cannot change their environment physically? You know what I mean? Maybe because of money, or maybe because of family and job, and some people feel stuck. What would you tell for these people that are in this position?
I think changing environments and travel is never about the money. It's about your own desire that you want to discover. So, life has showed me that you can survive and live even in different cultures without money. Mm-hmm. I remember also in India, I went there with really little money. It was a lot cheaper at that time, I presume, but we didn't need a lot of money to spend, besides buying the plane ticket. And that was something that I worked for, because I wanted that, so I worked for it to make it happen. But then once there also, I remember I ran out of money, and then I lived in a temple for 1 month, with local people. And there were leprous people amongst them. And it was a really enriching experience, because they were even suffering so much They were always smiling. They all were always sharing, the food with me. So that gave some profound lessons for me.
So if the problem is not money, what do you think it is?
I think it's mental. I think it's a combination of willpower and self-love. Yeah. So because I realized, for example, if I would have loved myself or would have understood that, I would have continued playing my saxophone always. Even as an amateur or, even with my family. It's not because of the family that I stopped the saxophone. It's because I didn't have to believe myself that I was good enough.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and that's the deeper cause, of course, that at some point you need to face that and you need to find a way to express that through art or through your work or through acceptance, through working on yourself. So that insight only came that at 55.
Do you think this also might be fear somehow? People who are not pursuing their passion, in this lack of willpower, in this lack of love.
Of course.
What do you think? It's fear.
Yeah, of course, it's a fear. So I've always worked on innovation, and I was always very early with trends and trend setting and always doing events. I could see the trends coming because I always had I made connections that other people could not make because of my travel, because of my openness, because I didn't have judgment of people who are different. Now I could see the value, so I could also see the links that were creating or could be created. So I brought always the most interesting people together who did not fit at first, or I was bridging sectors that did not fit originally. The fear is basically also what kept me going, because I always was basically proving to myself to receive the love from others, because I was not giving it to myself. So I was always doing projects that would give me a lot of recognition. I was actually looking for recognition because I didn't give that to myself.
This is interesting because I think, I come from completely different background than you, and it's beautiful. So I'm from Brazil. My experience is really, really different. But I have the same feeling that people are a lot pursuing recognition from external source, from others, to be valued by outside, by other people, and not understanding their own value, not giving themselves self-love.
Of course, because we are in a system that is not teaching that, or that is not valuing that. We are in a system that is an economic system where you have to produce and you have to perform. And then in order to do that, we do all these things to get the recognition that we have not received, because our parents in the first place, also they have to work and they have no time to take care of the children. And there is a lot I can say about that. In the Industrial Revolution, basically, the man first started to work. Yeah, and then children, for example, or especially the boys, they didn't get to see the father any longer, because before that, boys were always raised with other men on the field in agriculture culture. Boys were always amongst other men, their cousins, their uncles, their grandfathers and stuff like that. And then women were doing work at home. So, but as the fathers went out, then basically the boys lost that connection with the father, that natural connection for the father. So that's why we talk about lots of our generation, and already before me, we had very absent fathers. And that's also created a lack of healthy masculinity.
Okay.
Hence, there's a lot of toxic masculinity, what we call toxic masculinity. I don't really like this term, but on the same hand, also for the women, then the women started to work, and often then people started to divorce. Then the women were taking care of the children, But they also had to start performing in that business world and that business culture, which is a very male-oriented culture, which is all about performance, it's all about objective, it's all about production, it's all about efficiency. So we lost that feminine touch, on both sides. And now we're in a very masculine society, we're in a very masculine work environment. Hence, now there is this whole movement, like regeneration, like the work that I do with men, is about bringing back the feminine balance into our lives, because we are all humans. Yeah. So we come from man and woman, we come from our father and mother. So we both have these energies, but when they are out of balance, we get complications. And this is also why a lot of relationships are not functioning any longer, because there's no polarity any longer of the feminine and masculine. There's often too much masculinity or sometimes too much femininity. And so hence and people don't understand that. So when we don't understand, we cannot heal from it.
This is quite interesting, Rudy, to discover this unbalance between feminine and masculine, that we are in a really masculine society in the majority of things. And we are pursuing this kind of success that is from productivity, from making things, that is much more male than female. And then I think you can tell us a little bit how you are trying to regenerate this idea, to go back to balance. Who are you working with? What are the projects that you are developing?
So where I was from the Socratic design and then moving to Turkey, I basically decided that I wanted to live life. I did not want to function any longer in that model of productivity, efficiency, though actually I was very lucky because I had created a speaking career and I could still do, my talks once in a while. And that was providing me with enough money to basically move to Turkey, and had an amazing life there together with Djuena. We discovered also, or at least I discovered, that there was when I moved to Turkey, everybody was telling me, all my friends, what are you going to do there? There's Erdogan, there's an autocratic regime and all that. But that's what's in the media, right? So when you go there, there is a absolute, abundance of amazing people and cultures, and it's very diverse, and it's a beautiful country. They have amazing food, amazing people, and I discovered there's people who were creating actually entire regenerative villages. Like self-sustainable, living in nature, living with the land, creating solar or wind power energy, taking care of their own waste management and water management and all these things. And so it was there also that I got in touch with plant-based medicine, like ayahuasca for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I believe that, those experiences created also the insight that there's a huge intelligence going on besides what we know from the rational world and what we know of what we have learned in the scientific and rational world. I am not against that world, because that world has also created a lot of comfort and security and growth and wealth for many people. But by only focusing on that, which is again a very masculine energy, we have lost the touch with our own Mother Nature. And our Mother Nature is feminine, of course, but we come out of Mother Nature. We come out of starseed and some chemical reaction of some meteorite that came to Mother Earth, that created water on Earth and then created life. So, and we have seen all the expressions of how amazing life can be, with plants, with fruits, with veggies, with animals. Look at the oceans, the fish, all these living beings that we know, and which is extraordinary. So the plants actually, like ayahuasca, they teach you the intelligence of the plants and the intelligence of the system that we are in, and that we are all one and part of it. So from there, while we were doing already more conscious business, came the step towards actually going more and more regenerative. And after 3 years, we decided to move to Ibiza, because Ibiza is actually a lab of humanity of the future. Because in Ibiza, you have many different type of people that are coming together there. You have the regenerators who are regenerating the land. You have technology people coming out of Silicon Valley. You have the blockchain people. You have the creatives coming out of Europe. You have the holistic health practitioners who are there. You have the spiritual people, and tribe leaders and shamanic practices, or leaders that are passing by the whole year. So there is this unique mix of what is actually what we need for the future. Because I believe we will need all of that: spirituality, holistic health, technology, decentralized technology, regenerators who can regenerate the land, and we will need creative people to create new models for the future, to create new business models for the future.
I have 2 comments here. So I will talk a little bit about Ibiza and about this diversity. I totally agree that something we need to learn is to co-live with different people, and to put ourselves in this kind of environment that you see people really different from what you are, and with this curiosity mind to learn from them, what do they have to teach you, and also what you can teach. So believe in yourself that everyone, all of us, we have something to teach from our experience. We bring things within ourselves, and this mixture allow new solutions to arise, because you blend different kind of knowledge and create something that doesn't exist yet. But we need to be careful and go to the regenerative way instead of only production, because this also might happen. And another point that I would like to emphasize, Rudy, is your experience with ayahuasca and in Turkey, about the view that you start to see, to reconnect to Mother Nature, and to see the beauty in all what we have in our planet. When you mentioned the oceans, everything we can see, we all know that this is magical, that it's a miracle of life, but sometimes we take it for granted. I would like to ask you if you think it's somehow a matter of faith that made you change your point of view to understand how important is to look at this, to all of this, to nature, in this perspective that you have now.
Great question, thank you. Yeah, I think it's definitely a matter of faith and inner knowing. When we start to listen to our heart, we are connecting to the intelligence of the universe. Yeah, and it's by going through that process and fine-tuning, refining and deepening that process that we understand that better. The system that we are in wants us to be mechanistic. Yeah, it is a mechanistic system. We are creating robots, we are creating AI, but in a way we are already functioning as robots. So the problem is not that AI or robots are going to take our work. The problem is that we are starting to functioning like robots, and that we are not realizing that. Because we are so much more than just doing repetitive work.
Yeah.
And that is what the society and the economic system wants us to do. They put everything in boxes and, let us work and do repetition so we can basically produce. So that work is going to be replaced soon by robots and AI. So then the question is, what do we do with our lives?
Yeah. How do we live this? How do we change?
Exactly. So, but that it's because of the system that is like that, we don't give enough worth to ourselves. And because we don't give enough worth to ourselves, we don't question the system, or we don't dare to question the system, or we don't dare to step out of the system and go our own way. Because we are so afraid, again, fear, to not be loved by others, to be rejected by others. And this is the core point, I think, for many people, for many youngsters. This is also what we see in social media. It's all about external validation. They don't value themselves. And this is going to have worse and worse, applications and outcomes as we go through life, if we don't change the current, if we don't show people that there is another way. And so hence it's so important that people like us and regenerators speak up and show their story, and show their different projects, because there is a different way. But of course, everybody's in the system and in the box that, I need comfort, I need my work, I need to be able to go 4 weeks on holiday to a nice thing and all that. And I'm in my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So stepping out of that means also that you need to be able to, or willing to step out of your comfort zone. And that goes back to travel. I have been going out of my comfort zone so many times that I'm very, I'm like a fish in the water.
You expand it, so much that everything is your comfort zone.
Exactly. So I'm in my comfort zone, changes my comfort zone. So that became an asset also, and it became a real value for me also.
Let's go back to what you are creating, what you're doing, how Ibiza influenced you by this movement of really diverse people in the same place. I think this is really important to have this kind of environment.
Yeah, so I think the important is as I mentioned before, that when we connect to ourselves, we realize that we are part of a bigger system, which we also call in regeneration living systems. And what we now hear as living system design, because in the end we are a bunch of millions and trillions of cells. Yeah, every organism is a bunch of cells. Life on Earth is a bunch of combinations of cells. And so cells, they want to live. And cells, they always look for life. So regeneration to me is about how can we create more life for each other? How can we have more fun together? How can we take care of Mother Planet? How can we take care of each other? How can we build new business models that are influenced or based on these living systems, that are not afraid of I put something in a box, this works, and I'm going to hold on for the rest of my life because now it makes money.
This is what usually we see. It happens a lot.
But this is the mechanic system that we are in. This is the system design that we are in. So which is not a design from the last years. This is design from the last 400 years. When Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Yeah? When we basically saw our mind as different from our body. So there the separation started. And now everything you see in society is about separation. Us against them. Left, right, all these polarizations that are going on. And because our body is so intelligent, it's not just our mind. When we start to listen to our heart and our body, often trauma is stored within the body. That's when trauma is released. It often can be very intensive because there is so much energy that needs to be released. And there is a lot of individual trauma, but there's also a lot of collective trauma of things we have never dealt with. Trauma of wars. In Europe, there has been so much trauma, and the generations after the war, they never talked about the war any longer. And everywhere in the world, there are conflicts and there's violence, and we are not in a system where we can communicate about it. Systems like deep democracy and all that. So, and nonviolent communication, or trying actually to find ways to how can I express myself in a loving way with respecting the other. But because we don't respect ourselves, we don't love ourselves, we are angry and violent to ourselves. And if we are in such a position, we are also reflecting that on others. So we cannot have actually loving and kind relationship, because deeper within there is this hate to oneself. And this is what is created through the system of not paying attention to all these things. That's why in regeneration, there's a lot of attention of the connection with nature, and really start to go within, be compassionate with oneself, be kind, find ways that you can also let go of things that have harmed you, let go of things that, or maybe are very painful still for you. But we need to find ways to let go and to find new energy to actually stand in life, because life wants us to live.
Yeah, here I really would like a practical example, because for me, this is my point of learning. I'm in this point now, Rudy. I don't know if you know this story from myself, and I will open for you. So I just lived the past 6 months in a Buddhist temple. So it's good you know a little bit how those communities work. And I just started to realize that I was suppressing a lot of emotions, and I discovered that I live in an anger mood, that anger is my natural response for many things, but I didn't realize. And I'm saying because this is my story, and maybe it's the story of many people, because it's so naturalized. It's not normal, it's not natural, but it's naturalized by society that we respond in anger. People value people who scream loud, like the boss feeling that screams and do and ask for people doing. And then in this temple, we had teachings about anger and how anger, it starts with impatience, frustration, a little bit of annoyance, irritation. All of this is already like a minor state of anger, but it's what you have in mind. So we don't pay attention. We don't realize that we are this. Instead of having a mind of love, of affection, of embrace, of compassion to others, And I'm sharing because I realized I was living in this mood, and now I'm trying to control, because it's so familiar to me that I don't realize that I'm having this kind of response of, passive aggressive answers, things like this. And I'm doing this active exercise to change for love towards myself and towards all others that surround me. So I think this is really important.
Yeah, so nothing will change if we are not able to love ourselves. This is actually the big paradigm that we need to go through, like for the next coming decades. Yeah, we are going through a whole consciousness awareness of that. We become aware of these things, but somehow we haven't found the tools and methods yet how to get there.
Yeah, I think we are in ignorance. We don't realize this. We don't know.
Yes, exactly. So, and then the ones who are doing this work, those are the innovators of tomorrow. Yeah. So these are in the networks that we are in, regenerators, holistic health, spirituality. These are the people who are basically innovating for the rest of humanity, because the systems, they need to go through to school. How do you teach this to children? That they are more worth than somebody else, or than a TikTok video, or this and that. So this is the work for the future, and these are the systems that we need to change, and that's going to take a long time. Also because we need to learn to listen to what's inside, and because of our mechanical and productive system, we are disconnected from nature. Most people live in cities, and by 2050, I don't know how much percentage of humanity, but it's going to be 75% or more that's going to live in cities. So, and then also when we see how much we destroy nature at such a speed, we're going to need nature to reconnect with nature, because when we reconnect with nature, when we sit still in nature, your heart and your inner self talks to you. You know that when you meditate also in Buddhist, yeah? And it's that voice that we need to listen to. But that voice is in the system that we are in. We don't have time to listen to it, because it's constantly, we wake up, we need to do this. Or I check my phone and there's all these notifications, there's all this news I need to respond to. And then there's the messages for work, and I need to do this and I need to do that. And then I need to drop my children at school, or I need to pick them up and leave them in the crash. And then by the time I get home, I need to cook for my children. And then by the time they're in bed, I'm like, I'm so tired, I don't even have the energy any longer to listen to myself. So hence, a lot of people now, and also here in the West, in Europe, a lot of people in business, they realize there's more and more attention to holistic health practices in businesses, because they realize that it's actually for the well-being of their teams. Yeah, so, and it's for the well-being of humanity in the end that we need to do that, because not just for ourselves, but when we heal ourselves, we heal the rest around us. We always think that we need to change the world.
We need to change ourselves. Yes, world peace starts within ourselves. So if each of us is in peace, we achieve world peace.
Exactly. So, and that's why everybody's shouting on the outside, because there's so much anger of not having listened to this voice. There's so much frustration of like, I am constantly failing myself. I'm constantly treating myself not good. I'm constantly like betraying myself by not listening to that inner voice that wants you to do different things, that wants you to be different, that wants you to show up, to speak your truth, to love and all that. So, and that's why also it's so hard for people to come back there, because they are fearful that they're going to lose a lot. But it's the opposite. You gain a lot, maybe not in materialism, but you gain a lot in basically in creating new relationships that are loving. And you can restore old relationships also that maybe that have gone wrong, and you can create a more beautiful life.
Yeah, you change your world. You go from hate, from anger to love. You change everything. So, and this without the need of changing externally. I think changing externally totally helps. But if you change inside, you change everything.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Unconditional Man and Regenerate X, that are your projects. I think it's a really beautiful opportunity, a moment that you can tell us what you are doing, in fact, to bring this kind of change to other people. Because I think also something that happens to us when we start to change, we want to help other people. I think this is also a huge answer, because we start to cherishing others. We want others to be happy. We realize that we are only one person, and look how many other beings, not only humans, but all the beings are also suffering. And we want to help. And you are already doing a beautiful work within this. So
yes, when we moved to Ibiza, often when I was talking to men, I felt like, they always talk about work or sports or, do this or do that. And they never talk about how they feel. So I was always asking, but, what's inside? What's happening there? And nobody could answer that. So then I decided I'm going to start doing men's circles. I invited some friends and we started meeting weekly at my place, and then other places of each time at a different participant. And I didn't know anything about men's work. I didn't know anything even that existed. It was just like a very natural, organic thing that started and it happened. It was actually very useful because everybody loved it, because we were together in a different form. We were together as boys, as men who could share things that we could not tell anywhere else. So, and then COVID happened. And then I was very skeptical that if this could work also online. But then I started with inviting some friends online that I also knew through work and this and that. Hey, would you like to come together and sit together as men? And so it worked as well, because it's about the vulnerability you show and the safe space you are able to create, that men will open up. And so from there started basically the work. Then I met also Sudhir, my founding partner. He has more than 30 years experience of men's work, mainly in Germany, and he lived in Ibiza. So we started doing then circles there, and we started building programs, like 6 weeks programs of how can you find your courage back, how you can find your purpose, how to balance your masculine and feminine energy, how to change your habits, how to find your true power, and so on. And so then at the second wave of COVID, we also started doing those online. So, and actually it worked. So that's how we started building Unconditional Man. And now until my surgery this summer, we basically stopped the activities. We started training actually facilitators So more men can start doing this work in different places. So that's a bit the vision, that we train a lot of people, a lot of men that can start doing the work. And the work we do in circles is basically very simple. I can give you an example. When you put 5 or 10 men together in a room, they're going to start arguing. I'm right, I'm wrong, I'm left, you're right, this is this and this is that, I like this much more than that, and oh, you're right, I don't. So they start arguing. Why is that? Because they operate from the head, from the mind. Again, we're in this, separation of the mind is separate from the body. So one of the first rules we have is we don't talk about opinions, what you know and what you think. We talk about how you feel. Or when you say something about something that affects you, we ask you, don't talk about it of what you think about it, but how does it make you feel? How does the situation make you feel? How does the war in Israel or Gaza make you feel? How does, the war in Ukraine make you feel? How does people like Putin or Trump make you feel? How does other people make you feel? And then you start from a very different level, because then the layers of protection that the person has created to protect oneself are starting to drop bit by bit. And they also learn from other men that they can actually talk from the heart and they can speak their truth. So because every man always thinks that he carries the biggest burden and his life is the worst of everyone. But there's always somebody that has a different story,
This is quite beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very simple technique, but it's very revealing and very rewarding also to do this work, because you literally see the mask dropping.
Yeah, you are calling it simple. It looks simple, Rudy, but you need to create a huge space of vulnerability for people to be able to speak from their heart. And I think it's also a huge learning, because from what I know, many people don't really access their own feelings, and they don't really know what they are feeling. They don't know even how to name it.
Exactly.
Because we have complex and sometimes mixed feelings towards any situation. And how do you admit things, Sometimes you want something, but you are ashamed of it. And why are you ashamed? What happened? Is it something that it's from within, or is the system that tells you that you should be ashamed of this and that? And how does it change you, and how to say it out loud? It's really, you need to be brave, you need courage to put it out.
Yeah, that's why also we do circles on the longer term. We do programs on the longer term, because it's a process that is happening. And of course, we are in a system of blame, guilt, and shame. This has always been. I mean, look at social media. It's all about this, and they are now creating programs that give you more likes. The more bad you do to other people, you get more likes. I mean, where are we going? So, but for many men, it's about feeling safe, creating that trust in a circle. For example, the same man will join in a group for the next 6 to 12 weeks, and we are going through a process together. What is spoken in the circle will not be shared outside. This is only amongst us men. And then men will reveal things that they have never said to anyone else in the world. Sometimes. So they reveal their secrets, and then through that comes a process of awareness, and that it's okay. Because you've been telling yourself your whole life, like, I did this bad and I'm bad and this and that. So, and then you come into a space where you're actually welcomed and we are kind and compassionate with each other. And that needs to happen in order to heal from these wounds, because these wounds are very deep. And I tell you, 90% of the men are suffering from such wounds.
Yeah, I think so. Of the people, not only men, women also.
Yes.
About
exactly.
more about men, but it's beautiful.
Yeah. So Djuena, my wife, she works with the heroines. She was doing that work already before me, so she works with women actually to work on different topics, because men and women have very different needs. The men need to learn to trust, to become vulnerable, to feel again, to talk about the feelings, while women don't have any problem with that, but they need to also, get rid of sometimes the knight on the white horse. type of image that we have been infused by also in popular culture. And they also need to learn to stand up for themselves and create business. So Djuena is also helping them with business model design and all that. And so together then we created a retreat which is called Heart Masters, where we come together, we do work together and separate as man and woman. For 3 days we will do separate work, and only when we have gone through that deep process we come together. And from that new space of being we start to co-create. And that's amazing, because there we bring all the regenerators, technologists, entrepreneurs, business leaders, holistic health practitioners, spiritual people together to co-create new visions for the future.
So I would like you just to say some final words for everyone that's listening, that are maybe in the beginning of this discovering process, maybe it didn't think anything about it, or people who are already more advanced. What can you share? What is in your heart now after this talk?
I would say, with everything I see around me, and a lot of people get influenced by a lot of the things we see around us. Look for the beauty in your own heart, and look for the connection in your own heart, because there is really another more beautiful world out there.
Thank you so much, Rudy, for your time, for accepting this conversation. I live really with my heart warm. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Star. Also, I think this is the first podcast where I reveal so many things about myself also. So it's part of the journey, and also that I want to share with others so they can also learn that it's not to be afraid and to be courageous and to step into your own power.
Yeah, I think revealing about your story, it helps us people to see that everyone has their own process, so there is no right or wrong. This is beautiful part of the story.
Exactly.
How all those possibilities to change get to you? Do you feel you are living the life your heart truly wishes? This talk inspired me to go even deeper in my journey, in understanding my feminine and masculine balance, in thinking how and what I'm deciding to put energy and effort. Am I living my own dream, or the dream someone else told me to? What about you? Do you want to change something? What is missing for you to do it? Share your feelings and reflections about this episode with us. You can find us at Podcast Authentic Lives on Instagram. If you liked today's episode, consider sharing it with friends who you think will also like it. This helps to spread the program. Don't you want to miss an episode as soon as it's released? Follow us on your favorite podcast player, and since you're there, leave us a rating. We'll be very happy to know that you are thinking about the show. And remember, your own journey of authenticity may begin today. See you in the next episode.